Hey everyone, welcome back to the Space Podcast. I'm your host, Max Young. On this show, we dive deep into thoughtful conversations with creative minds from across the industry, sharing insights, stories, and the spark behind their work. Today, I have the pleasure to chat with Herman Huang. Herman is a seasoned video director and editor who has recently been focusing on growing his YouTube channel as well. With 16 years of experience, including graduating from film school and working on a wide genre of videos, ranging from product commercials and music videos to live stage visuals, Herman is also known for creating easy-to-follow tutorials online where he shares his methods and insights. Today, we discuss the challenges he faced transitioning from employment to freelancing, how he discovered and honed his unique visual style, and the workflow adjustments he has made over time to enhance his content creation process.
There are some things that I don't really enjoy doing as much. Like, for example, I don't like being behind camera that much. As much as I like cinematography, I don't like being the one who actually moves around the camera and moves around the lights and doing the physical labor side of things. I'd rather just edit. And I see filming as like the cost that it takes to get in the edit room.
Enjoy the chat. Hi Herman, thank you so much for joining me today and taking the time. Can you quickly introduce yourself and tell me a bit about who you are?
Yeah. So I'm a video director and video editor. I've been doing this for 16 years now. 5 of those years I've been doing it as a hobby and also going to film school. And then 11 of those years I've been doing it professionally. I started out in doing promo videos and instructional videos for a magic trick company. We can talk a little more about that later. But recently my current endeavor is to grow my YouTube channel and focus on content creation for myself. And yeah, I've done like a wide genre of videos from, product videos to music videos to even like live stage visuals. So it's been an exciting journey.
I definitely want to ask more questions in depth about each and every kind of major milestone that you hit. I think you also created like this longer YouTube video where you went in depth about your kind of journey over the last years.
Yeah.
Can you give me like a brief kind of summary of what your journey been like and kind of how your video production skills changed over the years?
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot to unpack. So I'll see what I'll try and condense it. So I started out with first doing it as a hobby. And then I realized that it was something that I wanted to keep pursuing. That's why I went to film school, because at that time when I was like looking for post-secondary institutions to apply to, like there weren't really any video production programs or any good ones. And at that time, there also weren't a lot of like online resources, like a lot of tutorials or courses or anything like that. So I decided to go to film school, did that for 2 years. And then right after that, I was really fortunate enough to be hired into a magic trick company. So magic was a big hobby of mine during high school. And it was basically a dream job being able to work in a magic company, because that was kind of what inspired me to get into video editing and video producing in the first place. I liked making like these compilation montage videos of like magic tricks and cardistry and stuff like that. And then, was doing that for a little while before it eventually became less magic promos and magic instructional videos. I had bigger opportunities to work on like live stage visuals, promo videos that still pertain to magic, but they were more like commercial work as opposed to just the usual promoting the magic tricks and trying to sell them. And then about 7 years in, I jumped into freelance, and that was kind of what helped me during that time, it opened up a wider genre of videos. Like I wanted to pursue like product videos, wanted to try that, did some music videos, and then eventually went into more content creation and creating YouTube videos for other people's channels. And then eventually putting more effort into my own channel, because I saw that as a more fulfilling step for me. Yeah.
I believe that it's really cool if you right off can like start to work somewhere where your passions also align. In retrospect, now that you're doing more like freelancing stuff, how would you compare it working like solo on like your freelancing kind of journey, or like taking freelancing as a business compared to being hired by a company?
There are both, like, it's kind of like a double-edged sword, I feel like. I think that most people who are in my field or in content producing or video production, they usually start out with freelancing, and then they try to get hired into like an agency or a production company or something more stable. So I was really fortunate that I got into a company like right from the get-go after graduating. And I think that the good sides of things was like, of course, the stability. And because I was right out of film school, they didn't really have like super high expectations for me to like kill it every time. So there was a lot of room to kind of explore and experiment. Because at that time, that company was kind of like a startup company at the time. So all of us were kind of like learning and growing together, and I liked that culture. And I appreciated that stability until later on, I was starting to kind of like do the same thing over and over again, and I was feeling burnt out. So when I jumped into freelance, that really helped me put into perspective in terms of working with other clients and knowing what that interaction is like and what that dynamic is like and what I'm capable of doing with other brands as well. So that was an eye-opening experience in that phase of my career. And I was glad that I actually started with a stable position first so that I can build up my skill before I go into freelancing, because then I feel more well equipped, I guess, when I'm pitching myself to potential clients. And yeah, I think that, freelancing was definitely one of the best decisions I made in my career, but I do have a lot of that being hired in a stable position to thank for being ready to do so.
Can you remember the moment when you had like this kind of deciding thought of thinking, okay, I want to maybe change something up. I want to try out this kind of freelancing sort of things.
Right.
And like how, because I think in one of your videos you said that you felt kind of jaded after you did like similar things again and again. How did like passion projects and like other stuff that you do, like how did that help to kind of regain the joy of video production?
Yeah, so it took me 7 years to realize that I wanted to jump into freelancing. And in hindsight, I feel like I should have jumped sooner maybe. But then like I would lose out on a lot of experience. So I feel like I don't have any regrets in my life. But that deciding factor, or that time where I made the decision was, it was actually around COVID. So things started quieting down. And at that time, I was also starting to feel burnt out, and I was feeling like I was hitting a glass ceiling with the company that I was working for. And that was mostly because I was working on very similar things and also not necessarily feeling fulfilled or happy with my life. And I had to really reflect on why that was the case, because everything was fine until like maybe like 6 or 7 years. And then that last little bit, I was like, something's off and I don't know what it is. And it was really hard to really articulate my feelings and go through my thoughts to dig out what the reason was. And I think it was like multifaceted. Like there were a lot of factors. So one was like a repetition of like working on magic related things when I wanted to try and branch out into different genres. Number two is like when you're working with a single client or a company, like you're trying to fit in their mold and their desires, right? You're serving that client. So it feels like you're working on someone else's dream instead of yours. And the ideal thing is to, align those things, right? But I was slowly feeling a misalignment. And that made me think like, hey, I'm not really happy with where I am right now. So I need to take some sort of action, whatever it may be. And I think freelancing was the way to do it. And it wasn't like a full on jump to freelance. Like it wasn't like a switch and just started looking for clients right away. It was by, like you said, like I did passion projects, and that really opened the door for the freelancing journey because it made me more discoverable. So passion projects not only helped me feel my inner artist and help with that creative burnout, because I was able to explore ideas that I wouldn't normally be able to do with my client, but it also made me more discoverable when I started sharing it on like Instagram and YouTube and TikTok and stuff like that. And it's funny because like during that time, social media wasn't really like a big thing for me. I never saw myself trying to grow it. But when I started posting my work and, going over that hurdle of like, what if people don't watch it, or what if people don't like it? Like, as long as I just share it, like, I think that's all that really matters, because as a creative, as an artist, like you want to share your work, right? So I'm glad that I took that step, because yeah, that's kind of what the turning point was for me.
Do you think that it helped you that you like worked before you started freelancing, that you worked at a company, in terms of like having enough courage to then start freelancing? Because I think that a lot of people that are, for example, in university or are still in school, and they have like this dream of being self-employed, and as you said, like not working for somebody else, but rather work on projects that like oneself really is passionate about. I think that a lot of people, myself included a bit, are like have this kind of imposter syndrome that maybe they think, okay, like if nobody else kind of validates, or like if I'm not validated in advance, for example, in a company when you are, for example, I don't know, like 6 or 7 years employed by this brand, then you kind of can build up maybe enough courage, or it can help you to kind of build up this courage and create this kind of diverse portfolio that you can then use to fall back on if you start having self-doubt. And I think if you don't have that in the first place, it's really hard to then kind of sell your service if you don't have enough kind of, I wouldn't say experience, because you maybe have enough experience, but you don't have enough kind of things to show, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I agree in terms of like basically like starting with one company, like I was able to really build up my skills. But the thing is, it's like I've already, right from the get-go, I kind of like went into a niche of like doing promo videos specifically for Magic. So there was a lot of imposter syndrome, especially like when I was deciding to jump into freelancing. And I'd imagine that like even if I graduated and I started freelancing right away, like I'd feel a lot of imposter syndrome especially because I went to film school, and it's like you're taught to be on traditional film sets, but I want to be in video production, and there wasn't really a lane for that, really, like as big of a lane as it is now in terms of like content creation and such, because like music videos back then like had no money in it, and like when you think of videographers, like people are doing wedding videos or corporate videos, and I knew that was going to be a dream killer, right? So I was very fortunate when I was hired into a company that aligns with my hobby. And even though, like I said, like I was able to build my skills, because it was very niched, I wasn't sure how to apply that to other genres of brands and requirements. So because of that, a lot of like the imposter syndrome really held me back from looking for clients myself and also understanding what my value was to them. So, and it's also like when you are a creator and you're an artist, it's really hard for you to evaluate objectively what your worth is and also how good you are. Because like if you get encouragement from like your friends and stuff like that, of course they're going to say it's like, oh yeah, you're killing it, man. You're doing great. Like that's what friends are supposed to do, right? But the true friends like tell you actual feedback. But the thing is, like, your true friends may not actually be in your creative field as well, right? So maybe their harsh criticism isn't really that valuable. So it's really hard to really know your worth until I think that you make that first jump and you start landing those clients and then seeing yourself succeed and building that confidence through each project that you do. I think that, either or, if you are someone who just graduated and you're like, looking to either get hired into a company or freelance right away, like I don't think there's any wrong way. And I think imposter syndrome is really like normal for creatives and everyone, especially if you don't feel like you have the skill set to deliver yet. But it really takes just doing it and then really getting your feet wet before you can know where you're at and what you need to improve, and then build your confidence, and it all becomes like a snowball effect.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think one of the best skills kind of to have is to develop or at least try to embrace or acknowledging this imposter syndrome, and then kind of embracing failure in a way that, like, even if you have like a lot of skill and a lot of knowledge in advance, and you've worked, I don't know, like 10 years in the creative industry, and then you maybe decide to take the step into freelancing or whenever, I think that at any time of your career, you can fail, and it will probably happen again in the future. And I think if you are okay with failing, like, obviously you don't want to kind of start with the mindset of failing, but I think if you are okay with the possibility and then take the feedback and ask yourself, okay, why did this outcome not match my kind of thought that I had in the beginning? I think that can really help to then like just improve. And yeah, I think that's also like a big step to building up encouragement and not overcoming, because I'm not sure if you can ever overcome imposter syndrome, but I think to kind of mild imposter syndrome a bit down.
Yeah, to like mitigate it and make it less overwhelming. Yeah,
for sure. And beside imposter syndrome, when you took the step into freelancing, did you have any other kind of things that were a bit difficult in the beginning, like during this kind of transition?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that, as I mentioned before, because I can't evaluate my skills, it's really hard to know how to like pitch myself. But not only that, being in a company, like I was already there for such a lengthy amount of time. Like I knew that I was valuable to the company. So I didn't feel like, oh no, like what if they fire me the next day or something like that, right? So because of that, and I was working with like one team and one, founder, like a client, right? I didn't know how to necessarily like negotiate and interact with prospective clients because I never had to deal with the front end of the business things. So when I jumped into freelancing, like business, that side of things and that skill set was something I never developed, right? I developed my creative side. I went to like, if you go to like film school or you go to video production or whatever, like they teach you how to develop your skills on that side of things, but never on the business end, right? And that's really like the important stuff.
Yeah, suddenly you have to like manage a lot of different jobs at the same time when becoming a freelancer.
Yes, exactly. You're not only managing jobs, like you got to know like what to charge, how to talk to your client, how to actually land deals, how to, write or read contracts, like all these things that like I didn't go into a creative field to learn or have any interest in. But when you make that jump, like it becomes essential and like you have to really sharpen up your skills and make sure that you have a good business head on your shoulders. And that's something that's like I'm still developing because it was not an initial interest, but like as I understand the value that it brings to my goals, it's like, okay, I need to do this, right? And then you see yourself improve or you see yourself landing bigger gigs or like your clients are happy with you. And it's just like, oh yeah, it's building encouragement and confidence for you to keep doing it. So yeah, that was the big thing, just learning the business side of things.
Yeah, one big question I have is how did you find and land projects involving clients such as Netflix, Adobe, and Artlist?
So each of those things have like a very long story that I'll try to condense as well. And they all happened through different circumstances as well. So for example, like the Netflix thing, that's like a reality show that I was a part of. And that happened because I followed my my long client that I've been working with, like on the magic side. And he became friends with the producer and star of the show. And, I'm the video guy, right? That he trusts. So that's why I was able to be part of the crew for that. So I was cam op and also editor, just to make sure that we were responsible of the magic side of the show. So we're just making sure that like the camera's capturing the right angles. We're not flashing anything, making sure the magic is as impactful on screen as it could be. And then Netflix acquired the show. So that's why it's on there. The show is called J Style Trip. It's about like travel, magic, all sorts of stuff. And for that, and then another client being Adobe, like that was also through like kind of like a middle person. So during my freelancey era, like before I really jumped into freelance, I did a lot of tutorials from my friend Josh's channel. So his channel is the Olufemi channel. He actually discovered me through my social media stuff that I was posting, like my passion projects on my Instagram. And when I was making a lot of tutorials on his channel, that was during a time where I was kind of like, it's almost like soul searching. Like I was trying to find out what I wanted to do outside of being with one company for so long. And I had a lot more free time because it was during the COVID time. So I just really wanted to find something to do and also increase my exposure and just like network during that time as well. And then eventually, as I did more tutorials, like he trusted me with a sponsor segment with Adobe. So I've also done one with like Dell prior to that, and that was pretty successful. So building that relation and building trust and building confidence in them to trust you to take on those things allowed me to make a video that was basically on the Adobe YouTube channel. And then the other example being Artlist, like that was the one where there was no middleman. Like it was a direct client interaction. And that was something I was really proud of because like before I felt like even though I was landing things that were like, a reality show on Netflix or like, a tutorial that was on the official Adobe YouTube channel, like I had to go through a middleman. So it felt like it wasn't really making me feel more confident in the sense of like mitigating that imposter syndrome because it feels like someone else had to acquire it. But like for Artlist, that was the first one where I was like, oh yeah, they went directly to me. Like they sent me the email, they proposed a contract. Like I'm dealing with the front end of things. And for those who don't know what Artlist is, they're a royalty-free asset platform for video creators and filmmakers. And I've been using their assets for like 4 years now, 4 or 5 years. So them reaching out to me was like a really big milestone. And then for that, like I'm pretty sure they found me because it was during a time where I was starting to release content on my own YouTube channel, as opposed to just releasing it through my buddy Josh's channel. So yeah, I think that happened through just exposure and just, making sure that you're discoverable, and that your skills and whatever else that you require shows through the videos that you post.
As someone who's like a Swiss Army knife when it comes to video editing, do you do everything on your own or do you collaborate or hire help sometimes? What has been your experience with outsourcing or collaborating?
Yeah, so I think it depends on what kind of project that I get hired for. I try to bring in people as often as I can, but the problem is like for certain jobs or clients, they may just entrust me and then I have to kind of get it done. But I think that a struggle that I've always had is being able to delegate my vision, like my tasks to other people and just finding the right people for the job. There are some things that I can hire for where it doesn't really matter as much where their creative like level is at, I guess, because like maybe they're a BTS shooter, or if I need like a DP, for example, like I'll need someone who's a little more creative and more skilled on that side. But I think that for a majority of things lately, like I'll take on smaller scale projects that I know I can either do myself or I can just hire one or two other people. But ultimately, I think the goal for anyone is to eventually hire more people and fill in those roles so that you can focus on the things that you really want to do. Because there are some things that I don't really enjoy doing as much. Like, for example, I don't like being behind camera that much. As much as I like cinematography, I don't like being the one who actually moves around the camera and moves around the lights and doing the physical labor side of things. I'd rather just edit. And I see filming as like the cost that it takes to get in the edit room. But it's still something that I do. And I still feel rewarded doing it. But yeah, I mean, I think that ultimately like anyone can benefit from just finding people to delegate work to.
Okay, interesting. Okay, then let's jump into your YouTube kind of side of things. Like I love your style that you kind of developed in your YouTube videos. I mean, you can even like see it right now. It's kind of like teal, reddish, kind of cyberpunky vibe. I mean, it's like basic branding, right? If somebody can like develop a style that he or she is known for, it can really help to connect this visual aspect with the creator themselves. How was your approach on like developing this kind of style when it comes to not only like setting up lighting, color grade, but also I know that you use a lot of like so very distinct like these kind of techie cyberpunky motion graphics. I think you also like created a pack for yourself that you sell online as well, and you use like you kind of immerse the viewer in this world. Do you think that you already found your style, or are you still working on it? And what is your process like developing and fleshing it out more?
So I think that in terms of like developing my style and where it is right now, it comes from just being more attuned to the things that you're interested in. Because I felt like this was something that's supposed to be kind of like subconscious and like intuitive. But I noticed that like for a big chunk of my career, I was like developing a style that like didn't necessarily represent me, and it was more for like the brands that I was working on. And I became kind of like a chameleon in that sense, and I wasn't really happy artistically. So it's basically just making sure that the things that I like it floats back to the surface. So I understand what are the things that are I'm incorporating into my work and what elements I actually like to keep using. So for example, like motion graphics, like I get inspired by poster designs, graphic designs, or like 3D animations. And then I like cinematography from like, movies like Blade Runner, Ghost in the Shell, and so on. And that kind of stuff has always been a part of me. But then being able to tap into that and apply that into my work and consistently doing it, I think is what helped further develop my style. And then even now, like I'm always developing it. Like I see myself change like styles or making new iterations of my styles every year. And it's just like, sometimes I'll I'll develop something that I'm happy with, and I'm just like, oh yeah, this is my style. This is what I'm gonna keep doing. I'm gonna do this for my next YouTube videos for like the next year or so. And then like maybe a few months later, I'm like, oh wait, but I like this new element that I'm seeing, right? Or like this is either trending, or it's just like I noticed that like I like this more, so I want to incorporate this in my work, and then my style like takes shape into a different thing. And I always try and like keep it in its lane or in its like category of like, I guess like the gritty cyberpunky type of look, but I'll always make iterations of it, because I think that as a creative, like you're always changing, you're always upgrading, you're always like developing your skills. So your style will naturally change with that. And I think that's normal. If it's not, then I don't know. It's normal for me.
In one of your videos, you said that also that you don't like the idea of niching down so much, but rather you think that becoming a niche yourself is way more beneficial. Can you expand on the idea behind that?
Yeah. And I think it really depends on your goals, right? Because I think there's actually nothing wrong with niching down into a specific specialty role, because if your goal is to like, you want to be like a colorist, right? And you know that like, video editing isn't necessarily for you, or like the other post-production pipeline isn't necessarily for you, but you like color grading. And then let's say that, you really like color grading, gritty, Blade Runner-y type of cyberpunky visuals, right? And then you're going to be that guy that people go to if they ever do a sci-fi movie to color grade your stuff. And then you reduce your competition, right? And I think there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, because I'm such a like generalist and I have so many different interests and hobbies and different aspects that I always kind of like, I have to put on so many different hats. I think that I developed a mindset that there's nothing wrong with becoming the niche as well. And when you do so, I would say it's a little bit harder, but I think it becomes much more beneficial, because you can be more authentic, you can be yourself, and you can just kind of focus on the stuff that you want to do and what you keep doing, and instead of trying to pigeonhole yourself into one thing, which I just never found joy in. I saw examples of this where, although there are YouTube channels or YouTube creators that still stay within a niche, the niche may be overcrowded already, but they kind of like lean more into their personality, right? Or their interests. And those are the things that make them stand out. So just tapping into the things that make you you, and make you different from others is, I think, just as valid for other creators. So yeah, if anything, it's just like another avenue that people can think of. And there's no one size fits all, right? Like maybe it's too hard for you, or maybe it's too challenging, or it's not something that you are comfortable doing. That's totally fine. You can niche down to a specialty role. But for me, and for some other creators that I've seen, like you can become the niche and people come to you no matter what it is that you do. And that's something that I'm still working on. And yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that it's easier for viewers to connect with a like personality trait that's more authentic than just information that's being delivered. I think it's also comparable to, for example, the purpose of a logo. Like a logo normally, like customers don't really connect to logos, they connect to people, right? That's I think also why we are currently seeing so many CEOs of like these modern startups being the face of the brand instead of just pushing out information and products. So I mean, we saw it with the Nothing phone, for example, or there's this like keyboard company, Workloader, and I think all of these like newer, like not only tech but in general, like these newer companies that rethink marketing, especially that they use more people in front of the camera rather than just providing value on its own, because I think that's easy for them for the customer to, as I said, like connect with the brand itself, and that also I think applies to YouTube creators. Like it's way easier to connect with somebody if you have either a personal trait that you share, for example, a similar interest, to a style that you like with this creator. So I definitely have to agree that I think as well that becoming the niche is always the best option that one can choose.
Yeah. I mean, we're definitely in an era where authenticity is like very valuable. Like you see that I think TikTok is like the best example. Like there are a lot of crappy quality videos that like do really well, and it doesn't matter about the quality, right? It's about the people and authenticity behind it. And yeah, a lot of companies are now using a lot of, figureheads or like even creating TikToks so that they can humanize the company. And that's way more relatable than just a logo, like you said.
Yeah. Your YouTube channel, I mean, I think you started it already like a couple of years ago, but then you kind of ramped up the quantity or the frequency of uploading videos, and now you're committed to publishing more and more videos. Why was it the next logical step for you to commit to publishing more YouTube videos?
Yeah, kind of touching back on what I said earlier, where during that time when I was making a lot of YouTube videos for other channels, like I saw the success behind the videos that I was producing and also the value that I was bringing to the company. And then I thought, like, I'm still serving a client, like I'm still fitting into a mold. So why can't I just make YouTube videos for myself and reap the rewards on that sense? And like I said, it wasn't easy, and I don't plan for it to be easy, but I knew it was the next logical step because I wanted to really serve more of myself. And I know this sounds a little bit selfish, but like I have to also fulfill like my creative desires and make sure it's fulfilling for myself as an artist. And like, yes, it's rewarding to work with clients and like being able to deliver their vision, but I want to also work on my own dreams and develop that, because I felt like for a big majority of my career, I was always fulfilling someone else's dream. And then working on my own channel, like, yeah, like I feel like there's a more intimate relationship between like me and the viewers, right? They come to watch like the content that I produce, and there's a relationship developed, and I find that a lot more fulfilling. Yeah, a lot more happy doing that. And I found a little bit of that rewarding feeling, like you said, like I started my YouTube channel like a few years before that, before I started wrapping things up. And, I was getting comments where people were saying like how helpful it was and like all these other, validations, right? So it's like, oh yeah, I mean, if people want to see more of my stuff and I'm building an audience, like I may as well kind of put my foot down, like on the gas, right, on the pedal, and just keep creating more before I go through another phase where I'm like working for another company or doing something else. And then I look back and regret not being able to pursue my own YouTube channel and my own creation. So really, it's just like knowing that the consequences are that I'm not going to be happy or fulfilled in my career or my life, right? So that's why I wanted to make that step.
Touching on what you said before, that like becoming the niche kind of thing, but also what you said about that you were really happy when artists reached out to you. I think both of them are also really connected to what we're currently talking about, because I think that as a freelancer, it's way cooler if people come to you for the style that you like doing, instead of if you kind of have to adapt to the vision of somebody else. And even if you're still like, for example, like in the example of Artlist, still if you're doing a client work, if the client came to you specifically for you and not because of your service, but because of everything that you bring to the table, including like your personal things, right? Your style, your likes, your dislikes, etc. I think that's way cooler than to create any sort of project than working on a project where you kind of have to, as I said, like adapt and fall into the place and kind of be less creative, because you can't really choose what you want to do on this project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this ultimately it's like less compromising. I think that's the main thing. Like I found myself compromising a lot when I was working with clients, and like I still have to compromise in a sense when I'm working on my YouTube channel, because there are things that I need to keep in mind that I may not necessarily enjoy. For example, like having to cater to the algorithm, or like working more on thumbnails and captions and all these other things that like I don't care as much for, but like they all work towards my greater goal of growing my channel and making it a sustainable platform for me to keep creating.
Yeah, totally. I think that's again like similar to transitioning to freelancing. Like you have to kind of put on more hats again. Like you have to learn about stuff that you are not that interested initially in, but if you want to take this path, I think you have to like learn about the ever changing algorithm and maybe even trends, but also I think that the great thing if you want to do it in the long run is like balance, right? Like what you want to create, but also maybe what performs well, because only things that like performs well in a sense get you enough, like depending on what your goal is, but either views for kind of like building out your portfolio, like getting more recognition maybe, to just creating like really memorable portfolio pieces to maybe attract like more client work, to getting sponsorships. I think like all of these combined then help you to make a living, if making a living off of YouTube is your goal, right? I think again, like balance between everything is just the hard part.
Yeah, it's all a balancing act.
Yeah.
It really is. Like that's how I've been feeling for so far in my YouTube journey. Because I've gone through phases where I'm just like, oh, let's just like do the things that are trending, do the things that are performing really well and getting the views. And then I find that not very creatively fulfilling. And I'm like, wait a second, this is my own YouTube channel. I shouldn't be a slave to like, the algorithm, although I always will be. I'm just trying to find a balance between what works, what viewers enjoy watching, what YouTube likes as well, and also what is going to be, like fulfilling for me as an artist to create.
Talking about balancing, I have no idea how you are balancing your YouTube edits. Like all the time, I have to stop and like rewind and then ask myself, how did you do this transition? Like, how did you came up with this idea? And I think one time you posted the entire timeline of a project on your Instagram account, and it's always amazing if you can see like these huge timelines with like multiple video layers, multiple audio layers, and then like see as a split screen, like on top the video, and then on the bottom at what part the timeline is currently at. And I've like, I mean, of course, like I know like the like phases, right? Like pre-production, production, post-production, or kind of ideation, then you kind of script out your video. But I think every creator has their own workflow, and I think the more that you work, either in a company or as a freelancer, you also start developing your own style, right? I'm not talking about a visual style, but also like your workflow, from creating your own kind of keyboard shortcut layout to creating your own assets, everything to make your work more easier and more fun. So my question would be, how, like, can you walk me through like a typical video of yours? Like, how long does it take you to kind of get the idea? Do you script out your full video, or do you use bullet points? Where do you get inspiration from? Like, what's this like?
Right. So I think it depends on what kind of video from a channel, because lately I've been kind of experimenting on what I actually enjoy doing more of, or what's bringing more results. And it's a balance of like what I enjoy doing and also what's bringing results. So I've done things like tutorials, right? Reviews for gear, and then just more like talking head kind of videos that are also tutorials, but like they're more on the soft skill of creating, as opposed to like the hard skills, like learning a sick transition and camera stuff. And all of them are different beasts that like have very similar workflow, but like it's a lot more nuanced in their differences. So like if I were to take like one of my recent videos, for example, where I'm doing like a talking head kind of video that's developing a soft skill, like either being more creative or like talking about my 16-year journey and like the lessons behind it. So I've gone through different phases where in the ideation phase, it used to be like, oh, what can I offer as a creative, like with my experience, right? And then it became kind of more like, oh, what's trending and what's working for the algorithm? Let's tap more into that, right? Maybe a new movie or show came out, and then I want to tap on like the technique that they're using and do a tutorial on that. And then like both of these things didn't really like fulfill me that much, so I jumped into more of like, what do I want to keep creating? And then I did things that were it felt very selfish. Like I did like an imposter syndrome video, like although that would be helpful, but I want that to be like very creatively fulfilling. And then I was like, okay, well that's not performing. And if I want to make YouTube like a full-time thing, I can't keep doing that, especially with the investment of time. So I'm now at a phase where I kind of like take everything into account for that ideation phase. And I ultimately, like the ultimate thing that that chooses whether or not I make the video is how much value it brings to the viewers. So I think, does it solve a very big pain point for the viewers? And if it does, then I will choose that topic to touch on. And then once I have an idea down, I do script everything out, like from like every word basically. There are some times where it's just like, I'll naturally like throw in a joke or, say it in a different way, like my delivery may be different, but the script, like I'm reading off a teleprompter, like almost every video. And that just helps me kind of like get in the zone and like not have to think about like what's my next line, because I used to do bullet points, and I'll do that if I like want to, I guess, like have the delivery feel more authentic, because then I'm actually like talking in my own voice, for a lack of a better term. But like for tutorials, for example, or like if I'm talking a lot about things that I can't, there's less wiggle room for me to play around with, then I'll script everything out, and I just want to focus on being able to say it right. So it's clear for the viewers and easy for them to understand. And then, yeah, once I script it out, like I'll do things like feed it through ChatGPT, make sure that all my things are grammatically correct, right? It's in simple English, whatever, it's easy to understand. And then, yeah, I just have like a talking head setup that I've kind of developed over time in terms of where to place my lights, so that I can just throw them up and prioritize efficiency when it comes to talking head types of videos. And that's something that I always like struggle with, in the sense of like, oh, maybe I should like change up my key light and put it over here and like do something different, right? But like now I'm in the phase where I'm pumping out quantity. I don't want to say like quantity over quality, but like I want to focus more on mass and know that I will need to compromise in certain aspects in order to make that happen. So having the same lighting setup is one way for me to kind of like have a shortcut to get there. And then, yeah, set up the camera, just do a talking head thing. Actually, sorry to go back into like my scripting process. Like there are some lines and areas where I'll make like comments on my script, and I'll be like, hey, for this segment, I want to cut away to like this reference, or like to this video, or like I want this type of insert. I think it was about half a year ago where I realized that like it's not efficient for me to use like a lot of different programs, because I used to use like Google Keep, and like I use Google Drive, and then I use like some other thing. And then I jumped over to Notion. So I try to do everything in there. I still use Google Keep as like a scratch pad if I have like random ideas, like if I'm going to the gym and I'm just like, oh yeah, like I should like write it like this, or this is how I should start my video. Like I'll write it immediately on there, and then I'll copy it over to Notion. And I try to just keep everything over there when it comes to either my scripting or like my brainstorming or like a shot list and so on. And for talking head videos, like I usually don't have a lot of like inserts most of the time. It's usually just cutaways to like my old videos and other reference videos from like other commercials or whatever. So that's a lot easier when it comes to like the whole process, because then I don't have to set up a camera and worry about cinematography and so on. And then, yeah, I just put my talking head in the timeline, trim away most of the silent parts and the parts that I like mess up my lines, which is like all the time. Even if I'm reading a script, like I'll do like multiple takes. And then, yeah, put in the cutaways, see how it feels, and then do the usual post-production process of like sound design and color grading. And I try to lean into the areas that make me stand apart from other creators. And for example, like I know that other creators use like, motion graphics and like they'll use sound effects and stuff like that. But like if there's specific types of sound effects that I enjoy hearing and also enjoy using, then I'll consistently do that, because that's kind of like me developing my style. Same for like my color grade and so on, right? Like that consistency, I think, is what really takes your style into shape. And yeah, that's kind of like the standard workflow of it. It's nothing too special. I think a lot of it is like nuanced in a way where it's really hard to describe each and every detail. But overall, it's a very linear process so far. And I'm trying to make it very linear so that it's replicable, so that it's easy for me to, like, if I were to hire an assistant editor or an editor to edit my videos, like they'll know what to do. So that's kind of the goal that I have. And then for the more like creative videos, right, like I'll be more hands-on about it. So there's actually a passion project that is coming out very soon that I'm working on. It might be out by the time that this episode is out. And for that, like, it's a different process in the sense of like it's still very linear. There's a pre-production, production, post-production, still scripting and everything, but like in between my scripting and also my production, like there's developing a shot list, or like I may draw like a lighting diagram and things like that, the standard production workflow. But those just mean like there's extra steps to the same thing, or to the same phases of production. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Let me ask some more specific questions, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
To each kind of part. Starting off with the ideation phase. I'm really curious, like, how do you think of ideas? Like, how do you come up with ideas? Do you have, like, so to speak, content buckets where you say, like, okay, I do tutorials, I do things I learned in my past and something else, or do you just do whatever you feel like it? Like, what's your process in like because you said like that you want to create a system that's like repeatable, right? And like, do you also have a ideation phase that's repeatable, or is it just like a very fluid kind of thing?
So going into YouTube, like I knew that I had to really work. I will be making videos for a very long time, so it had to become formulaic. And although when I say it out loud and when I think about it, it feels like, oh, that means it feels less creative because you're developing a system, right? But I don't think that's necessarily the case because when I'm being like creative, I feel like I'm always problem solving, and developing a formula that works is also part of that problem solving process. And right now I have, as you described, like I have different buckets of types of videos that I want to create. So for example, like lessons that I would have wanted to learn in the past. And then also like what's trending, or like maybe I want to review a specific gear. And those are the main buckets I have. And then there's some like more nuanced ones like soft skills or hard skills and stuff like that. And then in terms of, like I said, like deciding what it is that I want to pursue, it's like what's going to solve people's pain point like the most. And then I'll pursue that. Or if there's one idea that like jumps out at me, then I'll just go for that, right? Whatever it is, like I try to follow that excitement and also how much of a pain point it solves for people. Because I think that when I was first starting out, like there were a lot of skills that I didn't know how to develop and there wasn't enough resources. And now there's a problem where like it feels oversaturated, like everyone's making YouTube videos about certain things, right? So as long as I stay authentic and talk about my own experiences, then I try to make like a younger version of myself proud of myself, you know? And that's kind of, yeah, how I develop the ideas, really having different buckets and then following the one that solves the problem or excites me.
Right. So basically, you take your younger self as your like ideal customer profile, so to speak, to then tailor
like my
your
avatar,
content.
kind of.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. You said that you do most of your initial work in Notion. When you then move on to the like scripting or bullet pointing phase, you said that like only occasionally you use bullet points, but most often you stick to script to really nail on concisely delivering the talking points. Do you have a system for that as well? Like I know that in Notion, for example, you can create templates or you can create tables in like different views, right? Do you have anything like built or like set in place there that helps you to get started? Or
Yeah, when it comes to Notion, I feel like there's a lot that I haven't learned yet in terms of the different views and like how efficient they can be in terms of adapting like my workflow. But the main things that I do is like I'll write like just a page, like a normal page for my script, and I'll leave comments in certain parts that I like either want to fix and revisit back to, or they're notes for myself when I'm in the editing phase. And then I'll use like a table view, I think, for a shot list. And I'm pretty sure all I did was just like Google Notion templates for shot list, and then just looked for the one that looked easiest to use. So that's what I do for like the shot lists. Otherwise, there's nothing really special I think I do in Notion. For the most part, I just wanted to use Notion because I wanted to keep all my projects and my life together in one place instead of like having it scattered everywhere, because I used to have it in like different Google Drive folders and stuff, and I'm just like, this is not very friendly to use. So
it's true. Yeah, Notion is really handy to kind of combine every information together and have it in one place. When it comes to the shot list, I know that a lot of different people, like creators, have different ways to creating a shot list. And probably the one that you use is just like a more or less like simple kind of list, right? Where you can like check off the different like B-roll or A-roll elements that you want to film. But like one thing that I struggle, for example, with sometimes is how do you remember or mark what shot list piece or like what shot belongs to which part of the script?
it depends on the kind of video. So for example, recently, like the passion project that I was working on, like when I wrote the script out, like for a voiceover, I also had like a separate version of the script where I wrote a sequence of the shots that I wanted to go in and like what word or line that I wanted each shot to hit. So I used to kind of like highlight certain parts and then comment it and be like, oh, insert shot of blah, 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 blah. But and I still kind of do that, but like it feels kind of messy. But at the same time, like it is helpful where when I do all my shots, I already immediately know what kind of shot it is, and then I'll look in my script. Like I'll it's like a linear process where like as I'm editing, I will read through my script and like be like, oh, okay, so I commented that it's supposed to be this shot, or like the montage is supposed to happen in this sequence, so I follow that shot and look for those shots to fill it into my timeline. So I don't know if it's the most streamlined way of doing it, but that's the way that it's been working for me. And in my shot list, I'll make 2 versions as well. One is like a shooting order, so whatever's that's most efficient, because you know they use the same lighting setup or they use the same lens or whatever it is. And then I'll have like an edit order, so I can reference that just in case I get kind of like lost in the edit. I can be like, oh yeah, after this shot, it's supposed to be this shot, so I don't have to really think about it too hard. And staying organized is such a valuable skill when it comes to like being a creative, because at least when it comes to like the ideation process, it's a lot of like, it feels kind of like a beehive. It's just like one idea after another, and they're kind of like, it's like, oh yeah, this would be great if I used this kind of angle for this video, or like I use this technique. And it's just like you throw it all together and then you don't know what you're doing. So yeah, I try to make versions specifically for shooting and also for editing.
Okay. One last thing that I'm really interested about your process is your time management, because I imagine that like every phase takes a lot of time, right? Like coming up with ideas, scripting them out, filming them, probably even have to like film on different locations on different days, and even at different times, with the help or without the help of different people. Then the editing phase, right? Creating maybe even motion graphics just for this video, etc. How do you manage your time? Again, like do you use any programs there, or do you have a kind of 9-to-5 schedule where you just say, okay, I work the whole time and whatever is on my list has to be worked on, or what's your approach?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is something that is also something that is not taught to you very early on, either in film school or whatever, and you have to develop yourself just like business skills. And that's something that I'm still developing, because time management has also been kind of like, something I've always struggled with, in the sense where before I didn't struggle with it as much because I would have like hard deadlines, and I'm just like, no matter what, like I gotta make it done. I gotta get it done by this time, this day, right? And I will do whatever it takes to make that happen. And then now that I'm working for myself, and working on my own channel and stuff like that, it feels like, oh yeah, I'll just release it whenever I feel like it. But that's not going to work towards my greater goal of making it, you know, financially sustainable, and also, you know, keep it as a platform where I can keep creating. So I think that introducing deadlines for myself, whether it's passion projects or for my own channel or client work, like I think that is the best. That's the first step for me. And then I put that stuff in my Google Calendar. So, you know, I live by my calendar. If it's not on my calendar, I basically forget about it. And then in terms of deciding the deadline, it really comes with experience, I think, when it comes to knowing how long it takes for you to do each phase of the whole production. So being in it for a while, like for example, I used to do a lot of like promo videos for the magic trick company called Sans Minds. And I would know how long it would take to do pre-production, like write a script, develop a shot list, and I would know how long it takes to like shoot something and how long to edit something, because it was like a rinse and repeat process, right? So when I jumped into freelancing, like I would use that as a reference of like, oh, this is how long it usually takes for me to do this, and this is not so different from what I usually did. So I reference off that. And then if it's like different in the sense where like this new project actually took more time or took less time or something like that, I kind of reevaluate like reflect why it is that's the case. Is it because I'm doing something a little more challenging? Is it because, you know, I spent more time on like lighting, or like it required more sound effects? Like whatever it is, I keep note of it so that for the next project, I can estimate my time more accurately. So over time, that's been a development for me to know how much time it takes, and then knowing what's a reasonable deadline to give myself. And now it's leaked over to my YouTube journey, where I'm trying to give myself deadlines where I give realistic estimations of time for myself. So I think that really comes to you as a creative, and how much time it takes for you to do, and also just budgeting enough time to give yourself wiggle room in case something happens, right? You have some contingency to fall back on. So whether or not it's like your client asks you to change music, or like, you decide to put a little more effort into sound design because that's something that you're wanting to develop, then just make sure that you budget your time realistically. And yeah, just calendars. I do. It's kind of like a 9 to 5 as well, because like I give myself like I try to give myself an honest like 8-ish hours of work a day. Like sometimes it'll fluctuate, right, depending on how close I am to the deadline really, and also like what I'm feeling like. But I do put like a to-do list for myself every day, and I order them from like highest priority to lowest priority, and then I make sure I get all those high priority things done. And I believe I also read in a book somewhere, I don't remember which one it was, but like just being able to do that one thing of the day makes you feel more productive.
I think the book is
like
literally called The One Thing.
Oh, is it really? And yeah, I remember hearing it somewhere where it's like, you know, although I have a lot of like things on my to-do list, like there's one core thing that I need to do, and I need to make sure that I do it. And yeah, I think there's a lot of productivity techniques that you can follow. And I've watched a lot of tutorials, a lot of videos on productivity to find something that works for me. And that's kind of like the blanket of it, but it's there are some nuances in that as well to make sure that I hit those deadlines.
Yeah, I think especially as a freelancer or somebody that now creates for yourself, basically, being productive and like holding yourself accountable is one of the biggest things that you have to like lean into and learn, because otherwise if nobody else is there to kind of
light a fire under your ass or like chase after you. Yeah, I think that's the hardest part.
It is, definitely. So that's also why I think that it's not for everybody, and everybody that does kind of work that can stick to this process of creating content in the beginning should be really like be honored, right? Because you never know when a video of yours like gets viral, because I mean, you probably know the 80-20 rule, right? Like 20% of the output results and like 80% of the results, and vice versa. And that means that it's probably like 1 or 2 videos that helps you to kind of like get the ball rolling and like helps you to push your work to more viewers and more people. And you never know when this is gonna happen. So you have to kind of just push through it, I think.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And I see that a lot in my own journey when I'm looking at my own channel. Like it grew quite a bit at a period of time. It was around like July, or it was almost like exactly a year ago. And ever since then it started snowballing, and it was that 20% of videos that I worked on that really like felt like a hockey stick effect. And I've always heard this before I started my YouTube journey, and I thought like, that's not going to happen to me, but I'm going to try it anyways, because everyone's like, oh yeah, you gotta do it, right? There's like this, I think it's called like a valley of disappointment or something like that, right? You think that it's a linear growth, but like it's actually more like this. And that little spot is called the valley of disappointment, where like most people give up. So I'm like, okay, I just got to keep pushing through, like you said. And then there were videos that like I didn't put as much effort, or it didn't resonate with me as much as a creative, but like they started getting a lot more views and leading to more subscribers and building my audience. And I was like, well, I'm glad I did it, right? So I try not to put that pressure on myself anymore when it comes to my ideation process and like the videos that I put out anymore, in terms of like thinking, oh, it's going to rack up like a lot of views, or this is going to be a viral hit. Like I don't really care too much about that. Like I just want to make sure that whoever watches it like finds it valuable, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Like how I see it is that it's always bad kind of if you expect things that are out of your control, right? For example, like views. But what you can expect is everything that's in your control. So for example, video output. And we just talked about your like productivity, time schedule, and like kind of like wiggling your projects around. Do you have specific kind of numbers, at least in a month, for example, that you want to hit? Or are you more flexible with how many videos you put out, and how do you hold yourself accountable? Like, is it just yourself, or do you have a friend or somebody else that kind of helps you out to just motivate you? Because I know that these days that sometimes you wake up and you have like no motivation to work on a project.
Yeah, I feel that almost every day, to be honest. Yeah, and I think that's my biggest struggle right now. But I still get it done, and I think what helps is like, as you said, like I wish I had some sort of like accountability partner, and I think I kind of do in a sense, where like I'll talk to like my girlfriend about an idea, or I'll talk to a friend about an idea. I'll be like, yeah, I'm planning to make this video. So that kind of, I already know that I'm going to do it, but like it helps motivate me to actually keep stay on track for it to release on time. But the main things that I look for as a, I guess, like result is like, number one is like, am I happy? Am I going to be happy making this video? Because going from the phase of like what works and what's trending and what's good for the algorithm, like I'm like satisfied that it worked, but like I'm not happy as a creative that I did it. I know that it developed my business or whatever, but like it's not creative to me, right? I feel like I'm being a sellout. So I want to make sure that I'm happy with the creation. Second thing is, am I growing from it? So it's a growth in either like creative technique, or I know that at the end of the day, it helps fuel my channel as well, right? So it really depends. It's kind of like a scale. It's like, how much growth am I really getting out of this video? And the third thing I kind of expect as a result is like whether or not my sponsor is happy with it as well, right? So those are the main things. And I think that it's kind of like a sliding scale in some senses, because like I said, I've gone through different phases where like I used to be like not that happy with my video, and then I did things that are a lot more selfish and more creatively involved, but like they weren't hitting the numbers. So I was like creatively fulfilled, but like growth wise for my channel and longevity, like it wasn't that great. So I'm like it's always like a balancing act, as I said, in terms of finding out what it is that I value and what kind of expectations I'm trying to get out of it. But as long as I'm growing, as long as I'm happy doing the process, then I think that's the main thing I'm trying to do. Just make the process enjoyable.
Yeah, that sounds like a healthy approach, and also one that's sustainable, because otherwise I think it's too hard to kind of stick to that.
Yeah. I mean, you spend like 99% of the whole process actually doing the work, and then that 1% is like hitting upload, right? So I used to, I mean, reflecting back on my journey, like working with big brands or like artists and stuff like that, like they're amazing milestones that I'm proud of, and I feel really fortunate to have. But like there have been a lot of big projects that I worked on where the results really mattered, and for a client, like results matter, right? Like it doesn't really matter how your process is like, as long as you get it done and they're happy with it. But like when you're suffering for that 99%, because you're basically putting out fires every day, or like you're doing something that you don't really enjoy, but it's going to be a good portfolio piece or whatever it is, right? I reflected on that and just felt like watching life go by, like although it's a portfolio piece, maybe I'm not able to take advantage of it as much due to restrictions. Whatever it is, like the biggest shift in my creative journey is putting more emphasis on enjoying the process rather than the product, because there are some things that like you can't control.
Is there anything that we can expect from you to see when it comes to your YouTube channel? Do you have any like milestones that you want to hit, or any projects that you have going on?
Right. So right now I'm working on a passion project, and it was inspired by a book called The Creative Act, and that might be out by the time this episode is out. Not sure when it's being released, but it should be out sometime this month. I think the last time I did like a passion, it's not like a really big one. It's one of those things where I want to kind of exercise my creativity, and it was an idea that was like rattling in my head for the past year, and I was like, all right, let's just get it out of the way. And that'll be dropping this month. And then another goal that I have, I've mentioned in the beginning of this year, is I'm trying to hit 100K subscribers on my YouTube channel by the end of this year. It doesn't look like I'm on track to do it, but although that's my goal, I also like don't hold myself. I'm not going to feel guilty if I don't hit it, because I know that I'm going to do everything within my power and whatever's in my control to try and get there. And whether or not I get there isn't really a problem for me. Really, it's just a fuel for me to keep going.
One last question I have is, if you would give your younger self a piece of advice with your current knowledge, what would that be?
It's a hard one, because there's a lot of advice I would give to myself because I was young and dumb. But I think the main core things I would tell myself is to make sure to spend enough time to reflect on your journey and see if what you're doing is actually bringing joy in your life. Because like I said, the biggest shift that I had was really putting more emphasis on whether or not I was enjoying the process over the result. And I think that matters more than just the result. Like, of course, the result matters. You need to make your clients happy and you got to make good work, right? But I think making sure that the process is enjoyable, because that's where you spend most of your time is. I think that's where the importance really is. And I would tell my younger self to really reflect whether or not I'm enjoying the process, if it's bringing me closer to my goal, if it's really worth it, and tap into the things that I really enjoy doing, because I think it's worth following your excitement no matter what genre of video creation or whatever it is that you're doing in your life.
Nice. Then thank you so much for taking the time and joining me today. It was an amazing chat, and it was really, really interesting to talk to you and like get more insights about not only your your site where you worked for clients, but also your freelancing site, and now the new chapter where you're creating content for yourself. Where can people find and follow and get in touch with you?
Mainly on YouTube and Instagram. So my YouTube is my name, Herman Huang, and you can just search for that. And then on Instagram, my handle is Coffee Liquor. So it's like coffee liquor. It's just during a phase where I drank a lot of coffee. So it's just a strange, unique one that you can search up and see what I'm up to.